recently canceled Jonathan Majors is publicly speaking on his experience following being found guilty of, I think it's third degree assault and another charge
Oh shit.
for his fallout with his now ex girlfriend. And he's doing these interviews and whatnot. I mean, the guy is pretty much persona non grata at this point. He got fired from Marvel. He's been fired by Disney. He was supposed to be in a movie about Dennis Rodman. He got fired off of that. So the guy's just in the pits right now. And it ain't looking good for him, but he's still doing his press stuff to try and save or salvage as much of his name as he possibly can. And recently he made waves because he compared his current girlfriend, I guess they're together, Meagan Good, to Coretta Scott King. And this was, of course, something that people had an opinion on. So we'll go ahead and provide a little context here. This says Jonathan Majors defends comparing Meagan Good to Coretta Scott King. Last month, Jonathan Majors was found guilty of assaulting and harassing his ex, Grace Jabari, amid the long-winded trial. Audio was played in the courtroom of one of their spats. During the disagreement, Majors demanded that Jabari be more like Coretta Scott King or Michelle Obama. Following the verdict, the California-born actor sat down with ABC's Lindsay Davis for his first post-conviction interview. During the interview, he praised his current partner, Meagan Good, for standing by him amid the legal battle, once again mentioning the late activist who was married to Martin Luther King Jr. "She's an angel," he said of Good. "She's held me down like a Coretta. I'm so blessed to have her." This seemingly got the attention of MLK and Coretta's daughter, Dr. Bernice King, who appeared to call him out on social media earlier this week. "My mother wasn't a prop," she wrote. While it's clear that Dr. Bernice King didn't appreciate the reference, it doesn't look like Major's minds. He recently came to his own defense amid the debacle, noting how much of an inspiration Coretta Scott King is. During a recent chat with TMZ, he called her a giant woman, a very important figure in American and world history, and someone both Megan and I are inspired by and deeply admire. Elsewhere in his ABC interview, Majors also revealed that he believed the evidence presented was in his favor, describing being shocked to hear the verdict, blah, 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 blah. So, um, people are talking about this, the fact that he compared Meagan Good to Coretta Scott King in terms of the way that she stood by him during this legal stuff. And that apparently rubbed people the wrong way. But what are your impressions of Jonathan Majors equating Meagan Good with Coretta Scott King in this context?
In this context, now that I hear how he was comparing it, I mean, I get it. So I mean, much like how, who was that? The daughter of somebody said it, she's not a prop.
That's Coretta Scott King's daughter, yeah.
Yeah, so he was using her as a prop, if you will, in his statement. Um, so I get where her frustration is coming from, but he was just using an example in my book for anybody out there that wants to know how he wants to be held down. The thing is, I don't know what this guy did behind closed doors. Besides striking a white woman. I don't know what he did that has him this level of canceled, or this level of getting on everybody's nerves. What a complete, to me, it sounds like a misunderstanding. Um, I would have said the same. I would have said the same if in a situation where I felt like I was being held down by a strong woman like that. So, hey guys, you want an example? Coretta Scott King, for example. Michelle Obama, for example. Because everybody can picture in their mind what those women were to those men. So if he's trying to paint a picture, those are good name drops in order for people to understand where he's coming from and what he's looking for. So now, is Meagan Good? Now the reality of this statement, is Meagan Good actually the Coretta Scott King for this young man? I would argue no. Uh, barnacles, bollocks. There's no way. Yeah, I don't know her personally, but from what I've seen from her and what I know of her, this whole charade of a relationship, in my opinion, comes off as a PR. Uh, I don't want to, stunt. It's PR. I'm pretty sure his publicists and all these other people's like, you need to get into a relationship right now. Um, maybe it was, hey, you got to get in a relationship with a black woman. Maybe that was it. I don't know. But, Meagan Good got the call. So this is just another role for her in my book. So if I was in the legacy of Coretta Scott King and I heard this guy using, my aunt, my grandma, or somebody else as a prop in his fictitious Hollywood relationship, uh, you know, keep our name out of your mouth. Find somebody else. So I can see how they're offended, and I can see how he's trying to paint a picture to make himself seem like Martin Luther King in some people's eyes. So what are your thoughts on Jonathan Majors trying to finesse people's psyche by saying that Meagan Good, of all people, is Coretta Scott King?
Is Jonathan Majors the most canceled black
He's
person in entertainment?
currently, I would say. I mean, his name right now, if you say his name, oh, and I'm also cool with Jonathan Majors, fired. So you can't bring his name up in them circles, I'm sure.
I don't even mean right now, like all time. That would be an interesting thought experiment. It can go back. Let's look at all of the black people in entertainment who have been canceled. Do any of them come close to what's happened to this guy?
Yeah, I'm hard
I
pressed.
wonder because
Let us
man,
know in the comment section. I know
yeah,
that. Yeah,
he
tell
is
me who y'all know.
he is persona non grata at this point. I okay, so JV Wins is not offended by this. However, I also understand how the internet is going to interpret that comparison.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like what he was doing was using someone who he perceives to be a partner who held it down for her man as a way to explain how he felt the same way about his partner, quote unquote, Meagan Good. And so, from that standpoint, I understand the comparison.
Mm-hmm.
However, you got to be smart enough to know that at this point in time, you comparing your woman to a civil rights activist who was fighting on the side of righteousness is going to play out when people juxtapose that to who you are. Like this to me is a matter of like keep it simple, stupid. Pick a different example. And I guess in his mind, he was probably saying to himself, Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, righteousness. I still believe myself to be a righteous man. So I feel positive about making the leap with that kind of a comparison. But you got to stop thinking that the world is reasonable. And this is a message not just for Jonathan Majors, but this is for everybody out here. Stop thinking that the world is a reasonable place. The world is a very unreasonable place. I've chosen to stop using the word fairness in my everyday vocabulary. I've stricken it from the record for me. I've disavowed the use of the word fairness. Fairness doesn't exist. Fair does not exist. I instead use the word reasonable. And in its place, I have determined that the world is a very unreasonable place. As appropriate as the spirit of that comparison may have been, it nevertheless is going to get people riled up because you are somebody who, in the eye of public opinion, has been convicted of wrongdoing. And in this day and age, when you are convicted of wrongdoing, you have to pick your battles when it comes to the things that you say publicly very carefully. And when you are comparing your girlfriend to the wife of a civil rights activist, you have to understand that the masses are then going to juxtapose her partner to you. And they are going to, at that point, say Coretta Scott King was holding it down for a civil rights activist. Meagan Good isn't holding it down for a civil rights activist. Meagan Good is holding it down for an abuser. You, sir, cannot compare yourself to Martin Luther. That's the leap people are going to make.
Yeah.
That he is comparing himself to a civil rights activist, which in effect you cannot do because you have been, a guilty verdict has been rendered in your direction as an abuser. And so you cannot compare yourself to a civil rights activist. Is the spirit of his message something that I can understand? Yeah. But if I'm going to fault him for anything, it is being not smart enough to understand how those comments are going to play out publicly. And you got to be aware of these things. The world is not a reasonable place. No one is going to take his comments at face value and say, oh, he really cares about and appreciates the fact that his woman was holding him down. What people are going to say is, you're comparing yourself to a civil rights activist. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they're gonna do. No one gives a shit about the comparison that you're making. What people are going to do is look at the people you are invoking, and they are going to juxtapose those people to you directly. And they are going to say you are comparing yourself to being a civil rights activist. So, and to me, I don't think that is I don't think that it takes genius level intellect to bridge that gap and connect those dots. I think that you can be a regular level of intelligence and connect those dots. It doesn't take a leap to understand this concept.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that he, like so many people before him, felt as though his celebrity status, albeit tainted as it may be, it's sort of put him in a box. He's probably used to being in an echo chamber, just like the rest of these famous people, where they think that their opinions and their perceptions and their preconceived notions are the only ones that count. And so he misguided how ineffectively people were going to interpret what it was that he was trying to say. And, I guess that's a lesson for him. The world is an unreasonable place. The world is an unreasonable place to people who aren't persona non grata. So you have to imagine that if you are someone whose name has been sullied and you're being canceled, just multiply this dynamic by 50 to get a glimpse of how the world is going to pick apart every little thing that you have to say, given what you've done at this point. And so I think that's what we're looking at with him. I don't know the guy from a can of paint. They say he abused somebody, whatever. I think that there are levels of nuance and extenuating circumstances when it comes to this stuff that don't necessarily reach the public. All we see is guilty, and so now he's being canceled and now he's being fired, blah 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 blah. But be that as it may, you have to know how your words are going to play out. You really have to take inventory on the kind of cachet or lack thereof, the level of infamy that you reside in. And you have to calculate that with whatever you say on a mass scale. And you have to take that into account because these people will eat you alive. And he is no exception.
Well, I guess it is the echo chamber thing. I mentioned this publicist earlier. I think they need to go over some talking points whenever they have a camera in front of them or a microphone of what he should and shouldn't say. I guess this has been added to the list. But yeah, he's just talking, man.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, you got to read the room, bro. Everybody hates you right now. So you can say it's a beautiful day outside. It sure is, you damn abuser. He can't say nothing right. So yeah, he made a statement that's getting headlines. And the headline just reads that, Jonathan Majors thinks Meagan Good is Coretta Scott King. And people gonna run with that and run up the hill. They don't give a damn. And you still got your people now that hate Chris Brown's guts for what he did with the Rihanna. You still got those people. They just cannot stand him. Then there's people who act like it never happened. So I'm pretty sure the Jonathan Majors people are going to come out, eventually. I think he just needs to fall back. Just stop making appearances. If you have to go to court, bro, go to court. But I would just really fall back, and until this kind of like blows over. But he's making so many statements, just, and I don't blame him, fighting for his innocence and stuff. Because if somebody stuck a camera on my face, I'd be like, bro, I'm innocent. Yeah, if I'm innocent, I'm innocent, bro. Like, what is this? He's doing all of that, but we're seeing what's happening with these things. More headlines of him saying this or saying that, or whatever, and it's always painting him in a negative light again. So I don't know who he pissed off, but there's guys that abused, and I'm not saying this is okay. I'm just saying that there were guys that abused women before, and life went on. Life's not going on with this guy, and he's getting axed from everything. Maybe it's a Hollywood thing. I don't know, but that's why I'm saying that this whole situation with him, it should be studied, honestly. If for those who care, but it should be studied, because I find this very interesting. But hey, man, you can't go around, apparently, because I've said stuff like that before, man. Like, he's entitled to say that. So, but people aren't gonna get into the nuance of it. Like you said, they're just gonna see the main talking point and go, well, this guy can go to hell. So
Yeah.
anything that he says, he's just a jackass for saying it. But hey, man, it was an interesting case. I've been hearing all kinds of rigmarole with it. I don't even bother looking into video footage or whatever they had going on with that. To me, it's an L for him. To me, the whole situation's an L. The world at large thinks he's an abuser. So just fall back and don't compare somebody that you're not going to be with in like 2 years to Coretta Scott King level of holding you down. So now you got to play this game of, well, how long is Meagan Good going to be around, bro? Because then when y'all break up for whatever reasons, a year from now, 2 years from now, hey, she's still holding you down like Coretta Scott or Michelle Obama after a year and a half of publicity? Or was that just publicity? So just fall back, stop talking, go read Art of War or something. I'm pretty sure there's a few lessons in there about what he's doing and how you should not do what he's doing. So I think he's talking too much. He needs to go sit down. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with anybody having that level of comparison. If a man wants that in his life, he's more entitled to saying that. But for the streets are gonna run with it and hang them with it. Apparently, crazy
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, he just needs to be a little more self-aware and just, choose his comparisons more wisely. Like, maybe just don't choose civil rights activists. Because, like, you have to understand, like, you are not exactly someone who is synonymous with righteousness at this point in time. And if there is any type of profile that is completely synonymous with righteousness, it's civil rights activists. So maybe just don't leap to that comparison at this point. Let's give it a little bit of time and let it breathe while you're doing a little damage control to your career, whatever that may look like. Because at this point in time, saying that kind of stuff is just going to get you even more canceled. It's just going to piss people off even more about you. And when I say people, I literally just mean the internet. Because regular everyday people understand nuance. It's the mass that is the internet that doesn't understand nuance.
But again, if you're dealing with an industry who is going to hire you based upon people's reviews of you, um, he's only making it worse, if you will, for himself. And if he's always riling up the internet with statements, it's like, bro, just shut up,
Yeah,
go away,
yeah,
and then maybe a studio will be more inclined to hire you for something. But the more he's kicking and screaming, now again, if he's innocent in his world, then kick and scream all you want, you know. But at this point, the court of public opinion has already ruled him guilty.
Sure.
So he needs to fall back. But he won't do that. And if he didn't say Coretta Scott King, they would have and he just stopped at Michelle Obama, people would have got mad about that.
Well, I think Michelle Obama is viewed in a similar vein. That's the thing. Just don't go the route of activists and people in that, find another celebrity wife who held it down for her celebrity husband and pick that. I don't think it would have been as much of a media storm if he just didn't specifically use a political activist. Maybe, don't go that route. Do not go civil rights activist. Pick another entertainer or something. But
Jada Pinkett. No,
sure, why not?
That used to be this. Hey, I'm trying to have that Will and Jada love. You still want that, bro?
Oh my, yeah, but yeah, he would have been better off. But yeah, I think it's specifically so because, and just to be so that we are being factually accurate here, he has been found guilty in terms of court.
Oh, okay.
Third degree battery and assault or something like that. Fact check me on that. It's something to that nature. But yes, he's already been found guilty in court. Not of all charges, but of the third degree assault or something like that. So he's both guilty in court as well as guilty in the court of public opinion as well. It's both. But yeah, you just need to pick your. But if he wants to proclaim not his innocence, but if he wants to do damage control on his image so that he can try and do his best job to let the world know that he isn't in fact a cretin, he's entitled to that. Just do it in a smart way. Do not invoke the name of civil rights activists. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make here. Go another route. Pick different examples in entertainment and sports or something. But don't use the names of people who fought for people's civil liberties, because all the internet is going to do is crucify you for comparing yourself to a civil rights activist. That's what they're going to do. Whether you like it or not, that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
Good luck, John.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you got an uphill battle ahead of you, bro.